Hello there. Welcome to another episode of On Point. Our guest this week is one of the best female long jumpers in the world. She's the 2019 Pan Am champion and, of course, an Olympian. We're talking about Chantel Malone from the British Virgin Islands. Chantel, thanks for joining us on Point. Welcome to the show. And, of course, my first question off the bat to you is, how has preseason training been going?
Oh, my God. Thank you for having me, first of all. It hasn't been bad, actually. I thought it would have been a little tougher getting back into training and stuff like that, but it's been pretty good. I haven't lost too much shape, so that's a plus.
What were you doing after the Olympics that kept you in such good shape?
I mean, we still had competitions, we had the Diamond Leagues and stuff like that, but other than that, really, I haven't been doing anything. I've just been relaxing, spending time with family. And, I went home for a while and I was actually walking the hills. So maybe that's why I'm not as out of shape. I don't know.
Yeah, well, the BVI does have its terrain that is, that's quite a challenge. In fact, I'm told by Karen McMaster, your countryman, is that the terrain makes it difficult for internet to penetrate on those islands. So it must be quite challenging to walk the hills there.
Yeah, the hills are. When they say we're doing hills up here, I'm like, you have no idea what's hills. Because home, I don't know how I used to walk those hills for fun back as a child, but yeah.
Yeah, but let's start there. As a child, what got you into athletics in the first place?
I mean, I started out in primary school, and actually I wanted to do cheerleading, and my dad was like, no. You're not going to do no cheerleading. Anybody cheering is going to be there cheering for you, that kind of thing. And so I was always racing my older cousins and my brothers and stuff like that. So it just came as, something to do initially. And then once I got into it, I realized that, okay, this is actually fun and I'm good at it. So it just grew from there, really.
But I know, but you did several events. Why did you settle eventually on the long jump?
Well, I mean, back in the day, especially in the Caribbean, for us, we did all PE teachers for house day and, inter primary school competitions and stuff like that. They're just looking for people to basically put marks on the board, right? So yeah. I did the long, the triple, the high, the 2, the 4, the 4x1, the 4x4. I did everything. So, I mean, back then it's just all fun and games and you're good at it. So I honestly think that is important at that age to kind of dabble into everything so that you could know what you really have a niche for. And then when I went to college, it was mostly just the long and triple. And I did the 400 and the 4x4. But as a professional, I think my decision to go to the long was just a matter of, I couldn't do the 400 and the long jump if I wanted to be elite. Just because the training was kind of conflicting each other. One is more, more endurance-based speed, and then the other one is strictly just speed and power, basically, along with the technical aspect. So, I mean, it was just a comfort thing, because I still love running. I still love the 4. When I see it on the track, I'm like, ooh. I have a little butterfly and stuff like that, but that's a lot of work, though.
Oh, yeah, trust me. I have lived part of that experience, so I know the 4 is not easy. When you do those 600s and you're throwing up things that are not inside of you, it's very difficult. But let's skip ahead to a little bit because I wanted to talk to you about 2020 into 2021. Earlier this year, you were among the best long jumpers in the world. I think you went out to 7 meters 10, which ranked you in the top 5 in the world. And then May came along, you had your last jump, I think it was 707, if I remember correctly. And then you kind of had struggled for the rest of the way, including at the Olympic Games. Take us through that transition and what happened during that period, why you weren't able to hit the heights in Tokyo this past summer.
Well, let's go back to even 2019. The whole idea of preparing for the Tokyo 2020 Games, that was the mindset in 2019. And then when COVID hit, we didn't really let our foot off the gas all the way. Yes, training was altered. We couldn't find tracks to train and we had to kind of jump gates and do all that stuff. But training was still, we still had the mindset that maybe you don't know what's going to happen. So the games could be still be on, or it couldn't be on. So we have to stay ready. Or when they finally like canceled the games, we were still up in the air about competitions. So we were still training to the point where, you know, you want to stay in shape and you don't want to lose too much in case you have to be ready for competitions. I think that kind of carried into, you know, the fall training for 2020, which, you know, normally you have like this big break and you're starting from zero. But to be honest, I feel like where I started my training in terms of fitness wise in 2020, preparing for the games, I was already at a high level. Like I was hitting, you know, marks that's, you know, I was just on fire basically. So honestly, the first competition that we had, we weren't supposed to jump. I wasn't supposed to jump. I was just supposed to go and watch or maybe do like some running just to, you know, keep the training because we were still at a high level, load level for training. So that first meet, I don't think we expected that it would have been that far for jump. Training was going great. So we knew that we were ready, but in terms of it being like 7 or 8 at that time, that wasn't necessarily, I didn't think about that, to be honest. So I just was riding that wave. I was in great shape. My body was pushing limits that it's never been in before. And it was natural. It came naturally. Once I executed, I could not jump less than basically 680. And then going into that third meet, I think back in Chula Vista. So a week prior to that, I had to get a PRP on my hamstring just because I had a strain. I found out I had a strain in the hamstring. And then I went out, and that's when they had, I forgot the name of the meet, but that's when Brittany and Essie, Brume, and all of them were jumping. And I wasn't training for that week. I was in the pool, I was on the bike. And then once I got out there, I was like, okay, well, just let's do what we do. And the first couple of jumps was like 680, 680s basically. And then on the last jump, I think Brittany jumped 7 and then Essie jumped 7. And I was like, Chantel, come on, let's go. And then I jumped the 7 also. And I spoke to my coach and he was like, you know, that competition kind of showed him that I'm no longer the athlete that I was previously. Like I rose to the occasion and like I had that fight. And then we went on to the Diamond League and the results weren't good. Well, to my expectations, it wasn't what I wanted there. It had some stuff that was going on prior to, but ultimately it came down to 2 weeks before the games. I strained my hamstring again. Whoa. And this time it was like really, like in my mind. Oh, prior to that though, I had my knee flared up. I'm like, Jesus, like, can I just get a break? Like, you know, you're training and this high intensity. And so your body is literally like, okay, you gotta oil me. You gotta, like, you want a Ferrari to run like a Ferrari. You gotta shoot me like a Ferrari. And I think that was just my body at such a high intensity for so long. Cause at this point, it's like almost 2 years since I've been, you know, training at that intensity. So it was my knee, and then 2 weeks before the games was my hamstring. And I think mentally, if I'm being completely honest, mentally, that's what kind of took me out a little bit because I didn't know if I could trust my body. Like I wanted to jump and I was trying to jump in my mind, in my heart of hearts. I knew what I was capable of. I knew the shape that I was in, but subconsciously, I think that, you know, you're being a little hesitant with putting the foot down a certain way or just like executing the way you need to execute. And as I reflected on the games, I think that was one of the blocks that I probably had. And it's strange to say because in the semifinals, the first 2 jumps weren't it. And then the last jump, I was like, Chantel, you just need to let it go. Like, do what you do and you're going to be fine. You don't even you could jump this from 12 steps. You've done it in practice. Like, let it go. Don't overthink it. Just be, you know, technically sound and you'll be fine. I mean, and I definitely wanted it to be different in the finals because, you know, I was in the shape to be on that podium. And unfortunately, it didn't happen at that time. And I mean, of course, you're crushed, like totally crushed. That's the result of everything. But you live, you learn, and the only thing you could do right now, or I could do right now, is reflect on how I could be better when it comes to world champs and going forward to the next Olympic Games.
Yeah, we'll come to the World Championships in just a little bit, but I wanted to find out how you managed to pull yourself back up after you've just mentioned that you were crushed. The disappointment, obviously, having jumped so well at the start of the year. How difficult was it for you to then find that positive element to hold on to pull your bootstraps up, so to speak?
Oh my, like that question there, that's a very loaded question, because I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. It was tough because you had it, like I had it in my hands. In my head, it was in my hands. And to have it just slip out of it, and not being able to have that moment back, I didn't know how to deal with the emotions of being proud of myself for making history for my country, and even going out there and performing the way I performed because of everything that was going on prior to the games. And then the feeling of a dream loss, basically. Like, so I was struggling with that battle, because you have your support system and the people that love you, and they tell you and remind you that, stuff like this happens, and regardless of the outcome, like, you're great, they love you, they do all that stuff. But inside, it's like I've been working the last 5 years to be at this point, and it was there, and it's like, now it's gone. So I had to do a lot of soul searching, and to this day, it's still sometimes it's like the battle, like you're battling with yourself in terms of you don't want your work or all that you do, your sacrifice, the tears, the pain that you go through in training to be in vain, and ultimately what I've learned, and I am learning, is that it's more than just what you do, or it's more than the outcomes. And we as athletes have a habit of tying our identity or worth to performances or craft. And it's bigger than that. And now my mindset is whatever I'm doing, I want it to be a representation to the younger ones coming up, that they could do it too, or they could accomplish whatever they put their mind to. So maybe it may not look the way I want it to look like, or it may not pan out the way you envisioned it and you work hard to achieve. But ultimately, you putting yourself out there and just competing to the best of your abilities, or just being the best athlete and person that you could be, that kind of encourages the people looking at you, because there are people watching you. Surprising. Like, you don't know. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I'm so oblivious to the fact that people are motivated and being inspired by my actions, even when I feel like I've let myself down. So just changing that perspective to a purpose bigger than yourself, I think that's been the thing that has allowed me to, dust it off and get back to work,
When did you manage to finally do that? Was there a moment where everything came together, where you said, okay, it's time to brush this off and move on from this? Was there a significant moment where that happened for you?
And like I said, to this day, I'm still struggling with...
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, to this day, I'm still struggling with moving forward and not feeling like it's in vain. But I would say I've come to that realization when I was at home and I had the opportunity to visit the schools and to see some of the athletes just so in awe of me. Like, I don't see myself as anybody different than them, so to go and visit and talk to them and just have them express how much of a motivation I am to them, I think that kind of helped me to accept that, yeah, it didn't look the way you want it to look like, but the path that I'm on is like making a way for other athletes, especially in the BVI, because we don't have the same opportunities or the Caribbean, I would say. We don't have the same opportunities as other athletes with more visibility and all that stuff. So my path creates a way for them to dream and, you know, believe that they could actually accomplish more outside of character games or just college sports.
Let me ask you this.
That was a big thing for me.
Because you mentioned something about inspiring the kids back home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, prior to yourself and Karen coming to the fore in the last decade or so, Tahisha Harrigan was probably the biggest name coming out of the BVI. You know, her accomplishments, getting to the Olympics and doing, you know, great things for that. And was she an inspiration for you? And did you take anything from her in terms of how you're now navigating coming back from disappointment?
For sure. Taisha, she's my cousin, FYI.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so she has been an anchor for me, to be honest. She was a chef for the games, and she just made it so comfortable for us to be and just be locked into what we have to do. But outside of that, just looking at her and seeing all that she's accomplished and how she's handled everything with grace, I think that example has definitely helped me to at least try to give myself some grace. Mm-hmm. And just having conversations, because she's been through all that we've been through, having the conversations that uplift me, and just like reminders to kind of remember why you're doing what you're doing, and to continue to find the joy in the journey. And it may not always look like you want it to look like, but being able to accept whatever is going on and use it for the greater good on your journey, then, you know, all of that, like just having people in your corner like that has been through it and could be a reasoning board or somebody to just kind of pull you back from the ledge when you feel like you want to give up or just not understanding the purpose of, you know, defeats or the lesson that you learn in those defeats. Having that kind of person like Taisha to kind of just center you, I think that's so important. And along with family, but we're talking about Taisha. So she has been that person for me, for sure.
Yeah, and by extension, I wanted to ask you this, because I've mentioned Karen a couple of times. You are two athletes from a very small group of islands. You're not a Jamaica, you're not a Bahamas. You're a tiny group of islands that has produced some world-class talent like Tahisha Harrigan, like Karen McMaster, like yourself. Not just good athletes, but among the very best in the world. How, does that sink into you? I mean, for you sometimes, how good you are coming from such a small island, which is a small population, and the great things that you've been. I mean, you're a Pan Am champion, you're a CSE champion, you're fourth at the Commonwealth Games. You know, you're not an ordinary. You're not cut from ordinary cloth.
Yeah.
Does this resonate with yourself? And of course, I don't know if you have conversations with Karen about what it means for you as individuals.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, and it's something that I need to work on, is I don't necessarily give myself the credit that's due. Or I'm always so fixated on becoming better that I forget to applaud myself on all the accomplishments that I've had prior to the moment. You know, so sometimes I really have to sit and be like, Chantel, you really did that. Like, that's you. And you need to take ownership of that. Not in a cocky or arrogant way, but in a way that reminds you that you're not ordinary.
There you go.
And it's like to give yourself that grace, because sometimes we get so caught up in the defeats and we get caught up in stuff not looking the way that we want it to look like. And then we forget that you that girl, you that chick, for lack of better words, you know? And like I said earlier, we don't have the opportunities that some of the other athletes have. And I think part of the reason why maybe I don't even realize the magnitude of what we have done is probably because as a country, I think we could do a better job at uplifting the athletes that we do have. Like Kyron, this guy, like he basically ran world record pace. I mean, it was a freak
Yes,
race event for the games. But look at him. Like we were training on hills back home. We were training in like whatever weight facilities we could find, like just lifting weights wherever we could lift weights, and here we are in the world stage and putting the BVI on the map. And I think as a country, like you can't go to Jamaica and not like one of the big names walking on the street and they don't know who they are. Like, so as a country, I think we need to do a better job at uplifting, especially the elite athletes, just so that the kids could look at us and be like, oh yeah, I want to be like that person. Like they don't have to look outside of the country now. Like they have like actual people from home.
I'm home, yeah.
To say, yeah, like this is us. That's me. Look at me. They look at me and they say, oh, that's me. That could be me.
Yeah,
look at Karen. That could be me.
We can do this,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're a small country, but we have a lot of talent. And I think it's just a matter of, taking the talent that we have and grooming it so that they could transition from home character to the college sports. And then once they finish that, then they do professional sports.
What was it like watching Kyron in that race? Where were you?
I was right there because, so after the rounds in the finals, I went with other athletes and I was just standing there because the race was about to go. And I was just standing there. I said, I'm going to stay here. I went through the press zone and then I just stayed right there by the stairs. And after the race, he looked over and he saw me and he came and I gave him a big hug. I was like, that was so good. And he was like, bye, Chantel. Like, you see that time? Like, I didn't, but I'm like, how? And I'm like, yeah, you did so good though. So it's only up from there. And to see that spark, like, Kyron is a different breed. Like, he has a ability to lock in and just give your all. I mean, compared to Commonwealth Games, he used to throw up after every race, but now he's no longer throwing up. He's graduated from throwing up, but he gives all of him when we step on that track. And the same for me and every other athlete that steps on the track. When we step on the track, is no longer just to be there. We're not going there for a participation certificate. We're not going there just for the trip. We're actually going there with the intention of being on that podium. And I think, the world could see that now. Like, no, you aren't just selecting one or two athletes from this country because we need a representative. We are there because we work to be there. And we are actually amongst the best in the world. And that speaks volume to just the pride and, the determination as a people from our country.
So talk to me. You have a former long jumper as coach, really great long jumper as well. Tell me a little bit about what that dynamic is like working with Dwight. And of course, what you take from him in terms of not just his coaching, but his own experiences.
Yeah. So, I mean, Dwight has been a game changer for me in terms of working with him. I've always been in shape. I've always been fast. I've always been strong and stuff like that. And I've been through some great coaches and they could all attest to that. But I think with him, he found a way to kind of speak a language that made me understand what I needed to do. And even when I jumped 6, I remember the first meet with him, I probably jumped like 6-0 something. This was at Florida Relays. I was so upset. And I just looked at him like, what is this? What is happening? And his belief in me or what he saw in me never changed. He didn't change his outlook on what I could do. He never changed the approach in how he was going to train me. He was like, don't worry, I got you. We're going to fix this and we're going to keep it moving. And I think that belief kind of allowed me to let my guards down and actually buy into, yeah, you're going to be fine. Yeah, that was a bad day, but you're going to be fine. And, maybe it's him being an athlete himself and like knowing all the crazy that goes on in our minds. And as an athlete, you could know what you want to do, but sometimes you don't know how to bring it out. And he found a way to kind of break apart all the pieces that I had and kind of build it back in a way that resonated with me. And he doesn't only do it with me, he does it with, we have like 5 jumpers out there, and every one of us, we're all different. And he's found a way to make it make sense for each athlete. And I think that speaks volumes in terms of being a great coach. So he's not only a great athlete, but his ability to help others understand how to execute. I think that's been the biggest thing working with him.
So you all speak the same language. That's what it boils down to. Because
Yeah.
a big part of coaching, the way I understand it, is being able to transfer that information in an effective way that everybody is on the same page at all times.
Exactly.
And sometimes
no 2 people are the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So so for a coach to be able to get that information across, you basically have to be speaking the same language, which obviously is what's happening is your camp, because then Dwight speaks the language of all the jumpers in his camp, which makes him such an effective coach.
Yeah. His mentality is win. Like, just win. He has like a whole apparel, winner circle, win sportswear, just win. So every day at practice, it's kind of like you at the finals.
Yeah.
There's no excuses. You got to do it. You're hurting. I know you're hurting, but you got to get up and you got to go. So just having his, the energy, I think energy plays a big role in it. So if you're down, he's not going to allow you to sit down and just, be in your little hole. He's going to pull you up and say, you got to go. You got to go.
And speaking of you got to go, you're talking about a year now coming up. As I've mentioned on previous chats that I've had here, is 4 years of championships, 2022, 2023, the Olympics in 2024 and 2025.
Yeah.
At the top of this discussion, you talked about the carryover from 2019 into 2020, and of course eventually into 2021, which eventually took its toll on your body, training at such a high level of intensity for such a long time. What were the major lessons that you've taken from that you think will make you avoid those pitfalls as you approach Oregon in 2022?
Yeah, so Dwight and I have talked about that, and in his mind, he's always thinking, how can I be a better coach? How can I, avoid this from happening again? And in all honesty, I don't think it was a matter of anything that we did in training. Like we spoke earlier, is like, you had this long period of time where your intensity was still at like high levels. Even when you would pull back from training, once I got back on the track, I was still hitting times that was like, how are you holding this shape for so long? So I think moving forward is just, maybe if we could do anything differently, it would probably be just adjusting the cycles a little bit, so that if we need longer rest, which for some people maybe a week is going to be too long to relax or like just do active recovery stuff. But for me, depending on how my body's responding, it'll be like 2 days rest. So just maybe understanding how your body responds to the rest and how much is actually needed. And outside of that, on a personal level, I think it's for me to kind of get my mind right. Like I said earlier, I'm still struggling with the whole letdown internally. So I think getting right with me and just centered with what I'm doing and the purpose and the bigger picture of it all, I think that's going to be the game changer for me, because it's not going to be physical. Physically, I'm ready. Physically, you put me out there and we're in a good headspace, it's game over. But mentally, I think that's where a lot of athletes, if I'm speaking for myself, I'll speak for myself because I don't want to put anyone else in my thing. But if I'm being honest, I think a lot of people falter with the mental aspect of it, and that's what shows up when adversity hits or something like that. So to become mentally stronger, that's a goal of mine moving forward for the next 3 years.
Yeah, look, there's nothing to apologize for. The reality is that, my coaches used to tell me, everybody prepares roughly the same way. It's the macrocycles, the mesocycles, the microcycles, getting you peaked at the right time. But it's what happens here that makes a difference in competition. So having said that, I mean, are you thinking about maybe getting some professional help to get you to that level, to get you to overcome the disappointment of Tokyo, that you can prepare for Oregon in 2022 and of course, eventually in Paris in 2024?
Yes, for sure. I'm definitely going to look into options to see how I could create this, game plan. I was working with I had conversations with Dr. Jim Afro. He's the writer of The Champion's Mindset, or Champion's Mind. Mm-hmm. And I read that book. This was like years ago I've read it. And I saw that he was the writer. And I just reached out of the blue. I think this was after World Championships. I probably reached out. And he was like, I'm down to work with you. Just not even, just on a friendly level. Like we have conversations and stuff like that. So just understanding what it takes to be the champion, or what it takes to rise regardless of obstacles and stuff like that. That's something that I'm really looking forward to, mastering. Because like I said, I've already mastered the skill. Well, there's a little bit I gotta change, I think. But in terms of skill set, I know it's a wrap. So it's just about making sure that, once you do hit certain potholes or you do reach like high pressure situations, that you could stand tall and continue to do what you need to do, like just like you've been doing in practice or any other situation.
So the Commonwealth Games come up just before the World Championships in Birmingham, England, coming 2022. Are you thinking of going to the Commonwealth Games and the World Championships, or are you planning to boycott one?
No, I'll do it. So actually, the World Championships is before Commonwealth Games.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Hello? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, World Championships is actually before the Commonwealth Games. And I think we have like a 10-day period. So it's going to be tricky. It's definitely a very intense next 3 cycles. But I think it's doable for sure. Because you have like, the US athletes, they normally have the Olympic trials and then the world champs or whatever games that they have preparing for, like within that period. So it's just about making sure that I can stay healthy. That's my focus this year, to stay healthy and, just continue to grow and become a student and master of my craft.
Mm-hmm. Of course, you won CSC, as I mentioned, you won Pan Ams. What would it mean for you to win gold at the World Championships in Oregon?
I mean, you couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to come home with a medal at this Olympic Games that just passed, to be honest. With how the season started and how I felt, I'm telling you, if I could have just stayed in one piece, or if I had the strength to even not be swayed mentally, it would have been amazing. And so moving forward, I'm not even, yes, we want to win. The mission is always win. But I want to get so concrete with my craft and my ability that even on the worst days, it's still on that podium. It's still somebody's best. And I like when you say it out loud, it sounds really like boasty, but that's what it's gonna take, honestly. So we have to get there. Listen, and that's the mission.
Every elite athlete has that thing.
Yeah, it's like on my worst, we gonna be up somebody's butt.
Absolutely. Because look, you don't jump the distances you've been jumping. As I said before, among the best in the world. There are probably 3 women who are jumping as far as you right now. They have Mihambo. Brittany's, I think, is falling off now. I think her best probably is behind her. We don't know because she brings her best to championships every single time. Yeah. That's why she's a multiple world champion, Olympic champion as well.
Yeah, Brittany is the GOAT.
Yeah. So the obstacles in front of you are not that many. So if you bring your A game, there's no reason why you shouldn't.
No. And it's crazy to say that, because who would have thought that somebody from the BVI would actually like say that statement and it be true, you know? So yeah, I am so that others know that they can. And that's something that keep me playing in my mind, even when you can't see the light or you can't understand the reasons why certain things play out the way it plays out. Just know that every step of the journey is for a greater, the bigger picture. We may not be able to see it. But if we stay, locked in on the goal at hand and what we really want to accomplish, then our legacy that's left behind will be even bigger than we even imagine.
Well, what better way to end? Thank you so much, Chantel Malone, for joining us on Point this week. Of course, we're wishing you all the best for the World Championships next year. And of course, we're looking forward to seeing outstanding performances from both you and Karen in Oregon.
Sure.
Take it easy.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, it's been our pleasure. Of course, that takes us to the end of On Point for this week. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, remember to subscribe to our channel, like, and share our content. Of course, until next week, this is Leighton Levy saying have a good evening and bye-bye.